we thank you for this opportunity that you have given to us.
We thank you, Lord.
First of all, that we are alive and we have sufficient peace to be able to do what we are doing. Blessed be your holy name.
Amen.
Thank you for yesterday, Wednesday. Thank you for today. Lord, we know that today will outdo Tuesday and Wednesday by every measure. Thank you for your son whom you're going to speak to us. Please grant him wisdom. In
Amen.
Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. So as usual, I will just do a brief introduction of who we are. Now, this program has been put together by the JETHRO Leadership Academy. The JETHRO Leadership Academy is the training arm in Lagos Province 77. This is the department that augments the training that we usually receive from the mission. Our vision is raising competent, excellent, and heavenly focused leaders. Our mission is to equip and empower aspiring leaders with strategies and skills to cope with changing and challenging situations of life and ministry. Incidentally, when we set out this mission statement, we had no idea that Corona was coming. I mean, if you listen, it says to equip and empower aspiring leaders with the strategies and skill to cope with changing and challenging situations of life and ministry. If ever there was a word in season, I believe this is it. And so after now, you may want us, anybody listening, to help you with development. We have courses that deal with spiritual matters, administrative, material, strategy, and on and on. This that we're doing is part of what we do to empower, as we have said, and to help leaders to be more productive. I will post, so people usually would ask me for the recordings. The recordings will be available from when we finish today till about 11 a.m. tomorrow. I'm going to post an email address. So if you want copies of the recording, I'd like to encourage you to please send an email to that email address, and he will forward it to you anytime from maybe like 4 p.m. or thereabouts today. Thank you very much. Now, today we are moving on. If you notice, on Tuesday we dealt, purely spiritual things, understanding our dominion mandate. Yesterday was about leadership, how you can lead even in the midst of the chaos that we find ourselves. Today, by God's grace, we're going to be looking at what does COVID-19 mean for us and our businesses? How do we pivot? Because clearly business is going to change. I was listening to a man of God yesterday, and he said that he has spent over $100 million building his church. And that just before the COVID crisis, they were telling him that he needed to expand. And the man now says, but hold on, in spite of COVID, my people are working from their houses. So right now, I don't think I will expand anymore. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. Our speaker today is somebody that, I have come to respect a lot for his business, not just business, both spiritual, but today our focus is business. He's proven it both in his personal life, in the corporate world. Today, NECA is one of the most powerful organizations in Nigeria, if not in the world of labor. And the person behind that and his team largely is our speaker today, Pastor Segun Oshibawa. So I'd like you to, like I always say, make the best of it. If we were to pay for this, God knows how much we'll be paying. Please make the best of it and get your questions ready. He will speak. When he's done, we'll take about 30 minutes of Q&A. So you can either send your questions through the chat or you can send it through the Q&A section that you can see on your site. So, sir, over to you, and the Lord will help you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Pastor, for this opportunity. Let's just share a short word of prayer. Father in heaven, we want to thank you for a time like this. There is nothing that happens with you with accident. You thought today was, Father in heaven, you know today was going to be. Lord, you said in your words that the entrance of your word giveth light and giveth understanding to the simple. Father, that's just what we're asking from you this afternoon. Shed your light on the word we are going to share. Father, and grant us understanding to apply all the things we will learn today. Lord, I commit myself into your hand. Take absolute control. Lead
Amen.
me, guide me, and direct me in everything I'm going to do. In
Amen.
Jesus Christ's name, we have prayed.
Amen.
Now, the focus of my presentation is going to be on 4 key issues. And I want to run you through those 4 key issues. At a time like this, I think we should be reminding ourselves about certain general principles about life that are extremely important in our surviving a season like this. And I will focus briefly on some of those 6 principles because that they are extremely important for a time like this. Then I will take you through basic characteristics and features of the current season we are in. We need to be able to have a good understanding of the characteristics and features of the current seasons we are in, even though those features and characteristics are still unfolding. Then we go to the granular, which is really the heart of my presentation. And this has to do with basic things which we should be doing now. Because it's all about season. And those granular will recognize the characteristics and features of the seasons we are in now in identifying the basic things we should be doing now. And I will then end up with some concluding remarks. Now, let's start on the basis of review of those 6 general principles and cues about life. When the pastor informed me that he would want me to share my thoughts on how businesses should reposition themselves for the next season, I had a little bit of doubt in my mind. And the doubt I had in my mind was actually informed by what I consider to be what is most important to people at a time like this. And what is it that is important to people at a time like this? It's simply the issue of survival. Every discussion starts and ends with COVID. Our focus, our disposition, our vision has been affected by the COVID that has ravaged the world, so to speak. But that's quite understandable. But one basic thing that we should understand is that we must avoid a silo or an enclave disposition as a person. We shouldn't allow any singular incident, event, or situation in life to take our eyes off other important aspects of our life. We still have a spiritual life to live. Even though we cannot congregate in the church, we cannot ignore the spiritual aspect of our life. Even though our businesses have been shut, those businesses still exist. One could go on and identify other key silos, other key elements of our life, which we must not allow this frenzy about COVID to destroy or push to the backstage. The second principle I want to share is that no season lasts forever. No season lasts forever. No matter how grievous, no matter how traumatic this current situation is, it will surely pass away. No winter lasts forever, no summer lasts forever. This might appear to be the winter of life, but winter will soon give way to spring. And it's important for us to prepare for the next season of life, which is spring. So COVID-19 is just the winter of life, and it will surely give way to the spring of life. Thirdly, every season has its own peculiar characteristics. For you to have the best out of life, you must be able to identify the peculiar characteristics and features of each season. And in identifying the peculiarity and characteristics of each season, you must connect with it based on what it demands. You can't be in winter and then be dressing as if you are in summer. And you can't be in summer and be dressing as if you are in winter. And the question we should be asking ourselves is that this current season that we are in, what are the features and characteristics? And how well are we dressing to be able to survive it? Because for you to see the next season, you must survive this season. And we come to that in a short while. And the fourth point I want to address as part of the key principles we must bear in mind is that there are three voices that we will be contending with at a time like this. And any time in our life, there are usually three voices that we have to contend with. We have to contend with the voice of the Spirit. We have to contend with the voice of the heart. And we have to contend with the voice of the head. But the most reliable of all these voices is the voice of the Spirit. Proverbs 3:5 tells us that we should trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding. In all our ways, we must acknowledge Him, and He shall direct our paths. For you to reposition your business for the next season, you got to listen to the voice of the Spirit. The voice of the Spirit is superior to the voice of the head. The voice of the head is superior to the voice of the heart, in that order. So we must hear a clear word or guide from the Lord in terms of what next, what should I do? And once the Lord has spoken to you, the voice of the head comes in. You got to apply your hands, you got to engage yourself. You got to apply your rationality in giving effect to what the Lord has told you. And in taking a decision, you must allow your head to take precedence, or the voice of your head to take precedence over the voice of your heart. And again, when we get to the granular of the things which we are going to do, I will try and emphasize this. Any decision you want to take at that point in time, you must ask yourself what is propelling it. Is it the rationality of your head or the emotion of your heart? And the final point I want to make as part of the general principles and cues we must bear in mind as we live our life at any point in time is the fact that the antidote to crisis is both physical and spiritual. We're in a crisis now. And I've learned quite a number of lessons in the short time we have been enrolled in this crisis of COVID-19. But the antidote to crisis is both physical and spiritual. Cash is king. Liquidity is important. But prayer is supreme. Cash is king. Liquidity is important. And prayer is supreme. Always have a cash buffer, either as cash in hand or near cash investment at any point in time. We must realize the fact that, look, in this world, even Christ said it, we shall experience tribulations. Nobody knows when tribulation will come or crisis will come. But when the tribulations come and the crisis comes, your cash position and your spirituality are two sides of a coin that you cannot joke with. Those two sides of a coin you cannot joke with. Your financial situation at that point in time and the level of your spirituality. Now, let's run through of the characteristics and features of this current season, because it's important for us to connect with the characteristics and features of this season before we start addressing our mind to some of the basic things that we need to do. We are going through a very, very uncertain period. Nobody knows when this whole thing will end. Nobody knows. Nobody can say specifically, this is the end of it. Some people are even projecting a rebound. So we're going through a period of uncertainty. We're going through a period of unpredictability. Nobody can actually tell us in clear terms the extent of the impact which COVID-19 is going to have on the global economy. We cannot be specific about it. We can just speculate about it. Thirdly, we're going through a period where government will have to examine their fiscal space. Nigeria has already done that. The Nigerian government has reviewed downward its budget. And what is that telling us? Government is going to have less money to spend. We must bear this in mind. We must bear in mind the fact that there will be growing insecurity, and we're beginning to see the signs of that, particularly in the developing countries of the world, of which Nigeria is. The circle of those who are being ravaged by poverty is likely to enlarge on account of loss of employment. And that takes us to the next point about the future of this environment: loss of employment. Even the biggest economies of the world, they have lost jobs. And Nigeria doesn't really compute its own statistics, which is handy as far as job losses are concerned. But I can bet you that quite a number of Nigerians must have lost their jobs in the past 4 or 5 weeks. We're going to see reduced purchasing power on account of the fact that people have lost their job. People will have less money to spend. We're going to see prices of assets going down all over the world. And of course, because the cause of this crisis is health-related, we are going to see huge sum of money going into spending on health and related matters. So those are not really exhausted, those key features and characteristics of the current season that we are in. But the assurance which I have really is that the world economic powers will surely fight back to reverse the trends. The world economy is principally dominated by Europe and the OECD countries, the USA, and Asia led by China. They're not going to fold their arms. Their citizens have been used to the good life, and the sustenance of government is delivering on good governance. So government in those key economic blocks will come up with means by which they can revamp the world economy. And we're beginning to see that already. China is opening up. America has come up with $1 trillion stimulus package. But all those things will take time to impact positively on the world economy. But the lesson from that and the hope from that is that this tough time, this difficult time, will not last forever. Because as soon as those stimulus packages, which some of the developed countries in the world kicked in, we're probably going to see improvement in the world economy. Yes, we know that the IMF has predicted that we might be going through probably the biggest recession ever after the depression we had from 1930 to 1939. But I will still key in on the hope of a world economy that will recover sometime in 2021, by which time the various stimulus packages that the top economies of the world have come up with would have kicked in and would have started yielding fruit. So really, I see the green shoots really coming up sometime in the first quarter of 2021. We need to bear this time frame in mind in terms of what we are going to do. Now let's go to the granular, those basic things we need to do to get ready for the next season. There are options of reset mode which we can embrace. Options of reset mode. We can embrace the reset mode of survival. We can consider the reset mode of growth. But based on the characteristics and features of this season, which I've already shared with you, for most businesses, the appropriate reset mode they should be embracing now is the reset mode of survival. Only very few businesses will consider the reset mode of growth appropriate for now. And those are businesses that have been able to identify opportunities they can take advantage of on account of the COVID-19. If your business does not fall into that category, your reset mode for your business now should be survival. In which case, you got to start identifying what I call short-term measures that will enable you to survive the economic consequences of this health crisis. Short-term measures that will enable you to survive the economic consequences of this health crisis. You must survive this season first before you can position yourself for the spring season. It is surviving this season that will give you the strength to reposition, to take advantage of the opportunities that will come in the spring season. And now let's consider the 14 points which I have in my presentation on the granular as to what you should be doing. You need not be told that you have to go back to the drawing board and rework your budget and your business plans. All budgets are based on assumptions. In the light of what has happened in the world in the past 3 months, there's simply no way those assumptions can still be appropriate. Most of those assumptions will not be able to stand the light of today. You need to go back. That is, if you have one, I'm assuming as a business, you should have a budget and your business plan. It's time for you to review your business plan. It's time for you to look at your assumptions. It's time for you, in reviewing your budget and your business plans, to factor in the new normal, which COVID-19 has foisted on us. And the new normal which COVID-19 has foisted on us includes the uncertainty and unpredictability I've mentioned to you. And I can give you examples of that. Now, schools are shut. Does anybody know when schools will open again? Now, if you want to review your budget as a proprietor or proprietress of a school, what timeline will you be looking at? Will it be right for you to say by 1st May schools will open? You can't put your fingers on that. But at the same time, you need to rejig your business plan. So it's part of the new normal we are talking about. Or if you are running an event center and government has said not more than 25 persons should come gather together in a place at a point in time, how are you going to live with that new normal as far as your business is concerned? So time has come for every business to take a second look at its budget and its business plan. Of course, in doing that, you will identify threats to your business, and you probably also will identify some opportunities for your business. Number 2, we can't take our staff for granted. We can't take them for granted. We can't assume that our staff know the extent to which the current situation has impacted on us. So it's important we open up a line of communication with our staff. We can't leave it to an assumptive context that, well, they know what is happening. Why is it important for you to communicate with your staff? Because some of the decisions you are going to take are going to impact on the staff seriously. And it's important for the staff to understand the reasons why you are taking some of those decisions. So open up line of communication with your staff, as some of them are seated at home now. Or for those who are still running their operation, it's also still very important for you to open up line of communication with your staff. Thirdly, you got to see whether you can still earn income during this lockdown. Because there are still services that household need, as all of us are locked down in our various houses. Got to address your mind as to how you can get those services delivered to your client. And I give an example of myself. I am on a number of supplements, drug supplements, and I'm running out of stock. The outlet that supplies this to me does not know that I am running out of stock. But unfortunately, the business is not online. If I should call the supplier now, they're going to have the problem of difficulty of delivering in my house. But that's an opportunity for them at a time like this, probably to register an online presence and then use this as a means of advertising their products to their clients. This is equally possible an opportunity for them to re-examine the logistics for delivering their supplies to their clients, because there are business outlets whose specialization is in the area of supply and delivery. So there could still be some opportunities for you, depending on the type of business you are in, to earn income while you are still at home. Thirdly, the fourth point, very few businesses can run without credit facilities. So as your business is locked down now, you still have to pay your interest, you have to pay the principal. This is the time for you to touch base with your lenders and renegotiate your loan terms. I understand that GTB has granted some reprieve to SME by suspending interest payment on their loan for about 3 months. You cannot assume that what GTB has done will be done by other lenders. You must open up a line of communication with your lenders right away. You don't have to meet them physically before you do that. Renegotiate the terms for your loan. And in renegotiating the terms for your loan, you must go beyond the token which GTB has done by just suspending interest payment on the loan. What of the principal payments? If you are not earning any income now, it will be difficult for you to pay back the principal as well as the interest. And it may well be a time for you to renegotiate the entire loan package so that you'll be able to honor your obligation to the bank. And number 5 point, I'm aware of the fact that there are businesses that have taken on rented premises or leased rented premises. The likelihood is that you'll not be able to function on those rented premises or leased premises for about 1 or 2 months. The question then is that, will it be fair for you to pay income on assets which you have not used for your business? I don't think it will be fair. So it's high time you open up a line of communication with your landlord. If, for instance, you have a lease period that runs from January to December, and you need to renew your lease in January, if you have lost 1-2 months between January and December, you should factor that in. You should factor that in your discussion with your landlord, so that you can come up with a new lease period that will take account of the downtime you have experienced during this COVID period. So, time for you to open up discussion with your landlord as a way of trying to get some reprieve, which will help your cash flow when you eventually open your business. Now, some of us that are into supplies, that must have signed certain commercial contracts. And most of those commercial contracts have duration within which we must perform. It is quite evident from what has happened that you might not be able to meet the durations specified in that agreement. You don't have to assume that those that have given you the contract understands what is happening. No, you don't have to. The situation of COVID has provoked what I call a force majeure. And it's important for you to touch base with those who have given you those contracts and renegotiate the terms of supply. Now, we are going through a situation as circumstance where our top line, our income, our revenue is dropping, or is probably non-existent at all. But at the same time, we still have obligations, overhead expenses that we are going to incur. We can't keep those overhead expenses running, or else we'll be bankrupt. And let me give you an example of some of those overhead expenses. Take staff costs. What should we do with our employees at a time like this? When we are not making sales, when no income is coming in for us, what should we do with our employees? And that takes me back to one of the principles I've shared with you on the voice of the heart and the voice of the head. Some of these employees have been with us for a very, very long time. Sentiments will come in. But at the end of the day, can your pocket afford it? Will your balance sheet be able to sustain payment of salaries at a time when no income is coming in? Yes, we are human. There's a tendency for you to say, how will they survive? But that's a personal decision you have to take. For the month of April, for instance, are you going to deprive them of their salaries, or you let them have a percentage of their salaries? Your decision on that will be based on your cash flow. But one thing that I know that is quite clear is that no business will be able to sustain payment of salaries for too long if revenue is not being generated. But beyond that, which takes us back to the point I had earlier made about communication with your employees. You don't wait until the end of the month to let your employees know that you are not going to pay them. You need to let them know much earlier the company decision on payment of salaries, so that those employees can examine other options that are available to them. But also take account of the fact that you are not bound by the law to retain all these employees. If for any reason you've come to the conclusion that you will not need any one of them as soon as your business opens, this probably might be the time for you to effect staff reduction, so that you don't have to encumber yourself with the burden of paying salaries now, and when you open business, knowing fully well that you will not require those employees. Number 8, you got to generate incentives for your debtors to pay up. See, this is a time when cash is king. People are owing you. You cannot really assume that you'll be able to get them to pay what they are owing you now, or after the lockdown is over. You cannot count on the fact that they'll be able to pay you immediately, because what has impacted you has impacted them. So you should think of how you can incentivize them so that they pay you the amount of money they are owing you, even if you have to discount some of those debts. Cash is king now. Whatever you can rake in now as business will go a long, long way in helping you to start up business when this winter season passes. So don't insist on your debtors paying the face value of what they are owing you, particularly if they are willing to pay some amount. You must have come into an agreement with them, which might be less than the face value of what they are owing you. In the same vein, don't rush to pay your own creditors, those you are owing, because you need the cash now. But if they come up with terms that are very favorable to you, and you believe that you have the cash to pay them off, then feel free to do that, because you'll be relieving yourself of unnecessary debt burden by the time you are starting up your business again. Now, for those who are involved in food supplies, you got to avoid direct supply to populous neighborhood, or you're a bakery, you're selling bread. Don't make the mistake of moving your vehicle to those populous areas, or else the vehicle will come back empty without any cash, and your bread will be taken good care of by the hungry masses that are in such neighborhood. So if you're in the supply of food products, security is extremely important. You got to ask yourself how you can set up a safe and secure sale points for such products. Don't make the mistake of moving such products into the heart of populous neighborhood. Then, for those of us that have factories, shops, we need to look at the security for those assets. Do we have on ground sufficient security arrangement that will protect those assets? Can we count or rely on those security? Do we have our own check to ensure that what we have left behind are still intact? Those are basic things we need to really ask ourselves. Maintenance of some of those assets were key. I was talking to the owner of an event center a couple of days back, and she was complaining that rodents have started eating some of the cables connected to our ACs and some of the other appliances in our premises. I then gave some hint as to how she can use the security men on ground to turn on the AC and to make sure that unnecessary damage, right, comes upon some of those assets that are in place. So your security men could go beyond the mere security they are doing in ensuring that your assets are not wasting away during this period of lockdown. Now, at some point in time, the government will have to open up this economy. And as an entrepreneur, you got to be clear about what your entry strategy will be. If tomorrow we are all allowed to go back into our business, what are the things that you will need to do? You got to sit down and be clear in your mind about what those things are. You need to be sure about the details of what you are going to do as soon as the government unlocks this economy, right? Now, government has come up with some intervention funds for small and medium scale businesses. There is a tendency for us as Nigeria to easily dismiss such intervention fund. And our attitude might be, well, it will be difficult for us to assess it. Well, those efforts, those measures are mere rhetoric. Government has never lived up to its responsibility. And my advice to you is that give government a chance this time around. At least they have set up a 50 billion targeted credit facility, which is under the disbursement of Nisra Microfinance Bank. And it's on record that 80,000 small, micro and small businesses have applied for this loan. Give it a chance. Don't dismiss it. Because such fund, which will come at very, very low interest rates, will go a long, long way in helping you to restart your business. And for the investors among us, this is not the time to rush into making investment decisions. Because the prices of assets, I mean, from my own little understanding, the prices of assets during this time have not really reached their bottom level. They have not really troughed at all. So don't be hasty in committing your fund into buying any assets now. All you need to do is just to identify some of the golden assets whose values have started to decline as possible targets for your fund when you are reasonably convinced that they have troughed. Then you can then make your entrance at that point in time. So bear this in mind, get your cash ready, don't rush into any investment decision at this point in time. And for those who have their investment in some of these assets, and I hope my advice is not coming in too late, and those assets have accumulated some premium, I would have expected them long before now to have exited such assets so that they can run away with their gains. But if for any reasons you've not taken a decision on that, and the prices of those assets are already coming down, probably it's too late for you. You probably have to wait for some time before you decide on what to do with those assets. Now, in conclusion, let me just give these few words. Every crisis we go through teaches us some lessons as a person, as a family, as a spouse, as a business owners and investors. In order not to waste the opportunities arising from this crisis, please take note and document the lessons you have learned during this crisis. I have learned quite a lot of lessons, and I'm taking copious notes of those lessons because I don't want the import of those lessons to be lost on me. Let me conclude by encouraging you, because the Bible says in Psalm 35b, that though weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Our seasons of joy will surely come. And let's look forward to that season of joy. Once again, I want to thank Pastor Norua for the opportunity he has given me to interact with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been, as usual, and very enriching. So, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, sir, we have the highest number of attendants, 238.
Yeah.
I can see hands going up. Usually, I would encourage you to actually type your questions, because the process of unmuting you, getting you back, it's always very difficult. So just type your questions and then we'll take it. Already we have some questions. It says, what the developed world is doing is giving stimulus packages to businesses to continue to sustain their employees. Why is the Nigerian government not doing the same? Over to you, sir.
Well, I think we will be unnecessarily optimistic if we are looking in the direction of the Nigerian government to come up with the kind of stimulus package which the developed countries have come up with. The ability of any government to come up with stimulus package is a function of the fiscal state of that country. Nigeria is neck deep in debt. You look at budget 2020 and look at the budget deficit and the financing. So where will that type of government find the fiscal space to articulate a similar stimulus package that some of the developed countries have really come up with? I'm sorry to say, it might be extremely difficult for us to rely on the Nigerian government to come up with such stimulus package, because they are struggling with their own finances.
Thank you, sir. Somebody says, can you please help to talk about strategy to discuss follow-on with staff?
Well, for staff, first of all, you can get your staff to commit this period of stay at home as their leave period for the year. But again, I spoke about unpredictability, uncertainty. By the time this lockdown is over, we would have stayed at home for 4 weeks. Would that be the end? Nobody can say yet. So we might end up with a situation where staff must have stayed at home beyond the leave they are entitled to. But for you to be seen as a compassionate And now I'm talking about voice of the arts, because we've been told that businesses is about rationality and objectivity. But again, we can't rule out the aspect of being a very good employer. The basic starting point will be for you to get them to commute this period of stay at home to their leave. And if at the end of the day, they're staying at home beyond their leave period, you have to take your business decision based on your ability to pay.
Thank you, sir. It says, thanks, sir, for the very useful thoughts. To lay employees off in force majeure that we are in, do we obey the tenets of Section 20 of the Labor Act, especially the part that has to do with engaging with union and payment of redundancy benefits?
Well, not all enterprises in Nigeria are operating in a unionized context. If you are operating in a unionized context, there is a procedure you need to follow for that, which includes engaging the union in discussion. And if you're operating in a unionized context, there will be on ground a package of benefit that you have to pay to such employees that are being laid off. But in other contexts where the employees are not unionized, they're often at the mercy of the employer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Which calls for discussion with the union, because there wouldn't be a union on ground. And there wouldn't have been a redundancy benefit that the employees must have signed with the employer. So in such context, I think the employees are simply holding on to the short end of the stick. Right.
Okay, thank you, sir. Another person says, it's been a great one again today, and thank you, sir. My question is, how best can you introduce a new business you just came up with during this crisis into the market after the crisis? Is it wise to start introducing a new business to a potential client now, or wait till the crisis is over?
As I've said, no, I mentioned your reset mode. For existing businesses, most existing businesses, the reset mode is survival. For anyone that wants to go into a new business, for me, I think the issue simply is right timing. Right timing. I would favor a situation where you allow some measure of normalcy to return. Why? We're going through a period of unpredictability. So why would you want to jump into the water when the waves are really high? Except you want to take advantage of what I call transient opportunity. Because the fact is that at a time like this, there will be transient opportunity. But transient opportunity cannot be the basis of sustainable business. If it is transient, you can jump into the water, take advantage of it. But for sustainable business, I'm talking of business that you're going to be involved in beyond this season, wisdom will demand that you wait for some measure of normalcy to return before you start the business.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. It says balancing what we see happening around and what the word of God says is a big battle. What pragmatic steps should one take to make the spirit win this battle?
Well, again, see, we go back to those contending voices. But at any point in time, as I've said, we'll all be faced with the contest of the contending voices. Voice of the spirit, voice of the head, and voice of the heart. If the Lord has spoken, and you know it's the Lord that has spoken to you, then believe the Lord for his word and move on. But in moving on, don't forget the voice of the edge. It's work plus faith that will deliver your miracle. The faith aspect of it is the word of the spirit. The work aspect of it must be dominated by voice of your head. That's all I can tell you. In which case, there are certain things you got to act on based on rationality and objectivity.
Okay, thank you, sir. Somebody says, would we still need to pay leave allowance if the staff go on leave?
Well, of course, fair is fair. If the staff is on leave, it's entitled to leave allowance, and you got to pay the staff the leave allowance.
Okay, sir, I'm planning to expand my palm oil production now. Is the time okay?
Again, we go back to the point I've made in terms of research, survival, and growth. If you're talking about growth, it has its own specific tactics and strategy as different from the tactics for survival. If there's demand for your product, because the failure or success of any business starts from the market. We are still going through a period of uncertainty and unpredictability. I will be quite cautious in committing my resources to driving a growth plan now, because the risk element involved will be very, very high. I will err on the side of caution. It's not as if I will not have my business plan ready to drive my growth, but I will really, really be hesitant at a time like this, except it is a transient opportunity. But going into palm oil business is not a transient opportunity. So I won't jump into the high wave river now, so to speak. I would rather bid my time and allow some measure of normalcy to return before I pursue any growth strategy.
Okay, somebody says, considering the costs of training incurred on the existing staff before COVID-19, taking into consideration that certain staff can be regarded as key staff to the organization, will it be advisable to disengage those staff because of the present situations? Also, the difficulties of getting the same quality of staff when the situation returns back to normal.
Well, that takes us to perhaps point 3, which I made in my presentation: engagement and discussion with your staff. Every business we have is cost staff and is non-cost staff. But those cost staff, particularly those rare talents that you need to compete for in the market, you got to be careful the way you relate with them. You might not have the money to pay them now, but you might be able to come to terms with them as to how to reward them or put them on suspended reward rather than lay them off. If those staff are quite core to the existence of your business, it should not be in your interest to lay them off. But at the same time, you need to come into discussion with them so that both parties have a common understanding as to how to manage the rewards that are due to such staff.
All right, thank you, sir. There are quite a number of questions about the 50 billion. How do we access it? Which bank do we go to? I know you are not, so let me just, do you want to speak generally, just a little bit of maybe what you know? There's quite a number of questions around it.
Well, just get the contact of Nistral Microfinance Bank and also addresses of CBN branches. Those are the 2 points of interface for access to the credit facility intervention fund, right?
Okay.
They will avail you the guidelines you need to follow to access the intervention funds.
Okay. Sir, you mentioned that one would wait for asset price to go down, while in a sense, reduced demand may drive prices down. Many of the assets with imported components will increase due to devaluation. So what's the question? I'm not sure. It says, sir, you mentioned that one should wait for asset prices to go down, while in a sense, reduced demand may drive prices down. Many of the assets with imported components will increase due to devaluation.
Well, maybe I didn't make myself very clear on that. I'm talking of investment assets.
Yes.
You want to invest in real estate. You want to invest in stock. Only yesterday, somebody was discussing with me on a trading platform to trading platform for buying international stocks and transfers, which I've assessed. And I'm amazed about the prices of some stocks now on the international scene compared to the prices of those stocks 6 or 9 months ago. And going by what I know about the fundamentals of those companies, those stocks are grossly undervalued. But I still believe that the values of those stocks, those shares will go down. So I won't put my money into it now. I will just have a notional time as to when I want to come in. And the same thing applies to our stock here. Those are the assets I'm really talking about. Or you want to invest in bonds, those are the things I'm really talking about. Or you want to put your money in some other products under the mutual funds, those are the assets I'm really talking about. I'm not talking of real physical assets that might entail importing an item from abroad. That's not what really I was referring to.
Okay, thank you, sir. It says, can you defer the payment of leave allowance to when the company is financially better?
Yes, of course you can. But again, let me emphasize, discussing with the staff will go a long, long way in conveying the type of employer you are. You just don't treat them with disdain or contempt. They are aware of what is going on. But if you as an employer is connecting and interfacing with them, it goes a long way in showing how well you care about them.
Okay, thank you, sir. It says, majority of our citizens have monies in the bank, but not exposed to the use of ATMs. What advice do you have for government to create access to their monies for use at this crucial time?
Well, I was talking to a friend a couple of days back, and he was saying, well, I don't do, what was his expression? I don't do online transfer. And I was surprised. I said, you don't do online transfer? I said, how do you survive? Because given the investment which our banks have made into technology, they've made banking very, very easy for their customers. I can't remember when last I went into a banking hub. Because on my tablet, I get done with most of my transactions. And it doesn't take much for any bank client to be able to operate on those platforms. So for me, my need for cash is quite small because of my migration to electronic banking. The ATM will be there, but I don't want to go out there to be rubbing shoulders with other people for the use of ATM. So my advice is that after this crisis, try and migrate to the electronic platform so that your need for cash will be reduced to the very, very minimal.
All right, sir, thank you. Another one says, how do we handle the post-pandemic reality of decline in income for churches and upsurge in welfare demands by members?
I'm happy that the pastor is talking to me. Maybe the pastor, the pastor will be the one to talk.
How did I know that's what you were going to say?
You know, you see, we must, you see, again, you see, we're talking about a new normal. I know of churches that have taken facility from banks to undertake one project or the other. Some of the things I've said apply to them. They got to go back to those financial institutions to renegotiate the terms of the facility they have taken. And unfortunately, let me talk from my own perspective. Unfortunately, and I can't really explain it, I'm yet to connect to the online basis for paying offering and tithes. I can't explain why. There's something about the physicality that I tend to enjoy. Again, this is subjective. And it may well be that there are a whole lot of other people that are like me. Maybe we need to hear some other messages so that we can connect to virtuality as a means of blessing our God with our substance. I just can't explain it. As I've said, I cannot rationalize it. Why it's much easier for me to come out to give check for my offering and tithe. But while I'm in the comfort of my own home and after listening to a wonderful message, I'm asked to give my offering and tithe. And I couldn't just connect with it by going straight on my iPhone or my iPad to effect payment of my offering and tithe. Yeah, I'm conscious of it now. Maybe maybe the fact that I'm conscious of it now will make me to have a change of behavior. Maybe the church needs to talk more about this. You see, some of us are still very comfortable in that physical realm when it comes to giving offering and tithes. The church will have to help us to get out of that realm, honestly speaking.
Well, yesterday, Pastor Sunday said you should have a mind shift or a mindset shift. It's interesting. A friend of mine said to me that they are doing a project in the community and the church will come and support. And I said to him, where am I going to get the money from? Everybody says, oh, don't give to church, don't give to church. People must understand that behind that pastor that you see on the pulpit, there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of people that are being taken care of. It's like a footballer. That guy that you see on the pitch, he has a psychologist, he might have a team doctor, he might have a personal doctor, somebody takes care of his clothes, somebody his boots, somebody his socks. Just the same way also in church, we have staff, people who work full time for the church. This person says, I work in the bank. The other person says, I work in the church. I'm an accountant, I'm an administrator, I'm a contractor, I'm an architect. All the professions you have in the world, the church has them and they are being paid salaries. So I hope, sir, that you have a mind shift quickly, because otherwise we're going to have big problems on our hands. We're going to, the church is probably one of the strongest welfare service in most developing countries. Take a country like Nigeria. Do you know how many companies are sustained by those mass gatherings? Every time we have those programs in Redeem, and I see the number of trucks from all these FMGs, fast-moving goods companies, coming into that place to sell, gala, name it, name it, name it, name it, name it. Now, if we are a country that is heavy on statistics, by now it will be showing that for the fact that a certain number of mass gathering programs have not held, sales for those guys would have dropped. So people should stop seeing the church as a parasite. Rather, they should begin to see the church as an engine of growth, helping the government. I belong to another WhatsApp group, and somebody said, oh, what is the church doing? So I sent just a little, about one or two of our CSR reports, and I forwarded this, and I said, listen, if you want me to, I can flood this group with thousands of pictures of what the church is doing. Our own province, as small as we are, altogether, we spent over 4 million for the last Easter weekend, just giving out food to people, not to Christians, to anybody. And if you were to aggregate that, if our small province could do 4 million, our region with about 10 or so, that's about 40 million, assuming we all did for 4 million. That's 40 million that we spent over Easter just to give out food. So I want to encourage all of us who are listening to please keep supporting your church. And the good thing about Redeem is that majority of us who are the pastors are not on salary. If anything at all, we give to the project also. And just talking about I'll give you an example. A friend of mine said, anybody that asks him for money now as a church, he doesn't give more than 2,000 naira. It doesn't matter what, how you paint your picture. He believes that with 2,000 naira, at least you can be sure of another meal of food. That way, the money that would have been spent for one person at 50,000 is now being spread to 50 people. So at least you can help more. So just like our speaker has said, everything he has said holds for the church. If you need to tell your staff, do we need to reduce costs, etc., etc. But I'm not the speaker, and I think I've said more than enough.
Okay, let me add a few remarks to that, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
By now, I expect the church, as sensitive as it might want to be, to accord precedent to the truth as against the facts. And this will not be the first time in the history of the church going through a choice between the truth and the fact. The fact is the reality that is happening out there. But the truth is the word of God. The word of God is clear about the need for those of us that are called children of God to give our tithe, to give our offering. The fact won't change that. And we cannot stop conveying the truth to our adherents. It's left to our adherents to either embrace the truth or run away with the fact. Our own responsibility is to be consistent in sharing the truth, which is the word of God.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Somebody says, as a proprietor, parents are asking for school fees payments break, while I also need to pay my staff. What do I do, sir?
Take that again.
As a proprietor, parents are asking for school fees payments break. In other words, they want to pay their school fees. Meanwhile, I have to pay my staff. So what do I do?
Well, I must first of all say that I actually sympathize with the schools at a time like this, because they are one of the key economic actors in the environment that is suffering from the unpredictability that has come with this COVID-19 season. You will know that in some clients, they have in fact asked the schools to close for the session, right? So again, parents, you understand the fact that it's an obligation for them to pay their school fees to the school for the current terms. And if for any reason, and I hope that will not be the case for Nigeria, and it is not really unlikely, if we look at the curved line for COVID infection, it is not unlikely that government might come around to say the school should close for the year. If the schools should be asked to close for the year, it means that most students will not be able to go through third term in school. If they don't go through third term in school, the schools will not have rendered any service, even though the school will still have to incur some cost. So parents will not see any basis to pay school fees, except some of the schools will be able to migrate to the virtual platform to deliver their products. But I very much doubt if there are many schools that are ready for that kind of change or shift, right? Because it comes with its own cost. If you want to really move to virtuality now as a school, you got to invest in some infrastructure. But at the time when you're having cash flow, will you be able to have the wherewithal to invest in virtual infrastructure? The answer probably would be no. So what schools will have to contend with is probably what parents are owing them for the current times. And the school can then manage its cash flow based on that, pending when normalcy will return.
All right, sir. Somebody here says, just a comment on the tithe. It says, maybe we should keep a physical envelope into which we can start dropping our checks to be dropped at a later time. Our sincerity should be guided by our heart. A thought, please. Actually, a lady, one of our, a member of our own parish, actually says to me that her family, after every program, they take their offering and they are keeping it somewhere. That whenever church reopens, they will pay it. And so yes, I think that's a good point. For those who are challenged with online offerings, some might even be bothered with the 10 naira that the bank takes off your 1,000 naira offering. You know what I mean? So that could be an issue. So like I told my own people, I said it's about the sincerity of the heart. Whether you want to give it now or you want to keep it aside, don't forget you are dealing with God. And he's the one who reconciles the books anyway at the end of the day. So that's a point. Somebody said, okay, it says just a testimony. I had pain during this lockdown period. When I braced up to pay my tithe online, miraculously I was healed. Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Somebody says, very key question. Can one buy or invest in landed property? Or is this pandemic outbreak lockdown a period, a good time to invest in property?
Well, whoever is asking this question, I don't know which age bracket it belongs to. You know, But what we know about the real estate market in Nigeria is that the real estate market is unfortunately one of the sectors that has lingered in recession for some time. And the COVID-19 is going to worsen the fortune of the real estate sector in terms of how soon it's going to come out of that recession. In which case, one would expect the prices of real estate products to continue to decline. Following that, this might be the right time to invest in things like land. But again, as I've said, it all depends on your age bracket. If you belong to my age bracket, I'm in my 60s now, I'll probably not put my money in land. But probably if you belong to the age bracket of my son, 30 to 35, you have time on your side to recover. So this might be the time for you to lock up your money in land because of the significant appreciation you are going to have on it over time. For my age bracket, the real issue for me now is cash to meet my transactional needs and my contingency needs. So my money will rather go into an asset that can give me regular cash flow on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. I will not lock up my investment in an asset where the appreciation can only be harnessed in 20, 25 years' time.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I believe that is probably the last of the questions. Thank you so much